Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and note smasher video today, starting with some very good news. You can see here on screen, Dillian Whyte has signed his end of the contract for a fight with Tyson Fury. Reported by multiple media, boxing scene saying it's going to be at Wembley Stadium. So very, very good news. And while Whyte may have left this late in the piece, right up until the deadline, the fight is going to happen. So I guess the next question is, well, what happens next? Obviously, these guys will be into training camp. We've seen Fury, less so of Whyte, but he's been out training as well, preparing for what will be an eventual fight with Fury. A press conference, no doubt, will follow shortly. And this is something that I think they were planning for last week. Obviously, things have been delayed because Whyte sort of stretched things out right to the deadline. So we'll have that pretty quickly. And remembering, it's just 2 months away. 23rd of April, it's not a long time, especially to sell a big fight, 70,000, 80,000, whatever they're going to do for Wembley Stadium. It is a big venue. You want to have everything sort of announced and out and tickets sold as quickly as possible, enough time to build the fight. So cutting a little bit fine, and maybe that was part of Whyte's aim. He'll get paid regardless, and Fury had accused him of wanting to get paid to be at the press conference. So maybe Whyte won't be seen in that forum. But we are going to have the fight, so this is just to mark this good news. And this is good news because this is a good fight, one of the bigger fights in the heavyweight division that can be made for this year. And Tyson Fury, obviously, he had been right up until the deadline, on social media, goading Whyte, saying, sign the contract.
Get it signed, shithouse, or move on.
And now he has. So good news all around. Moving on, the Dillian Whyte managed fighter Fabio Wardley, so pictured near the bottom of this promo here. He is going to be fighting this weekend, and an opponent has been confirmed for this fight that's going to be on the Okolie Sislak card. He'll be facing Daniel Martz, so pretty well-trodden journeyman. So this is not a great fight. Wardley at the moment 12-0. I wasn't expecting that he was going to be moved very quickly, at least not for the next few fights. And that was based off something Wardley said on Twitter, on one of the Twitter spaces a few months ago, that once you moved at a certain rate and face certain opponents, you can't go back. So that was a signal for me that he was willing to have some fights gradually improve and not be moved too quickly. And I think for his development, given that he hasn't had too much of an amateur background, he's learning on the job, I can understand that. But once you get past 15-0, I guess that's when you really need to step it up. But a couple of fights before that. But Martz, he's tall. He could, go a few rounds. He is one of these guys that will give it a bit of a go. But once things get a bit tough, generally either he's sparked or he will just sort of give up, shake the head, doesn't want it anymore after a knockdown, something like that. So I'd expect maybe Wardley will ease into this one. Maybe it won't be a first-round knockout. I think he will want a little bit of time in the ring. He's been out for about 6 months. And when you're a prospect and you're wanting to fight regularly, perhaps this will go 2 or 3 rounds, but it will be a stoppage at some point, I am sure. Arslanbek Makhmudov has reflected on his recent win against Marius Vuk, who he stopped in the 6th round of their fight. Literally just sort of bludgeoned him until he knocked him down, and then the referee waved it off. So getting to the translation, he says, I knew my opponent has a very strong head, but I didn't know that it was so hard. I had to postpone the fight 3 times, so it affected my morale and physical condition. But as they say, at the bottom of patience settles the gold. In the end, the long-awaited victory, it was a good experience. Thank God, good win. And yeah, certainly at times wasn't a lot of nuance from Makhmudov, who's sort of come forward, really let those hands go sort of fighter, relies on his power, his durability, tried to walk through Vuk, and it didn't really sort of go to plan in the rounds 3 and 4, but ultimately sort of ground him down and into the dust and out of there. Meanwhile, on the undercard, Simon Kean, he was facing Shaundale Winters. I covered this and the Makhmudov fight in a post-fight video, but he has also commented on that win. Interesting comments here, because it was a case a few years ago. He got knocked out by Dylan Carmen, has looked a bit suspect ever since. A little bit shy to pull the trigger, a little bit just not quite right in there. But he put up a good performance in that fight, coming back, getting off the canvas, stopping Winters. He says, as time went on, I questioned whether I still had the balls to do the sport. Last night, I had to be brave to go for the win. Sorry, Mom, for the emotions. By the way, I'm on my 21st win. Thanks to my sponsors for supporting me. So it's interesting, that first part, at least, not so much concerned about the sponsor part, but, that he had questioned, sort of staying in the sport, whether he had what it took, the fortitude to continue. And obviously he's pushed through that. There just wasn't something quite right in the last couple of years. He looked tentative, but that was the best of Simon Kean I'd seen for a couple of years. Despite being knocked down, he always has this air of vulnerability, being open to being clipped. Winters almost took advantage, and when he dropped him with a left hook, which was in the 7th round, I believe, just from memory, there was quite a long count, and you can see here, and Martin Mikalajic, who had responded to one of my posts, very unhappy with the long count that he got. What happened was that Shaundale Winters was warned, or the referee was remonstrating with him a number of times, saying, get back to the neutral corner. So because he had to keep turning around and directing Winters to back up, the count ended up being over 20 seconds. I think on the broadcast they said they thought it was about 15, but I did go back and check, and it was over 20 seconds. From the time that he's knocked down to the time that the count concludes, it is almost 25 seconds. And Mikalajic says, never ever my fighter will fight in Canada again. I'm pulling out Ranelski against Vargas in Canada. Quebec Boxing Commission should be shamed for this, what they've done to Shaundale Winters. And certainly, it wasn't great. But obviously as well, the referee felt that Winters was not following the instruction. So make of it what you will. But certainly a very, very long count, some time for Kean to recover. And ultimately he did, and stopped Winters in the 9th round. Frazer Clarke also reflecting on his first performance as a pro, saying, we start as we mean to go on. You only get one debut, and for me it ticked almost every box. Can't thank all of you enough for the support. I felt like I was on cloud 9 last night walking out in Manchester. Thank you. I'm not delusional. I know that it will get a lot tougher, but I was made for this. Thank you to my team for their hard work and efforts. We move on. As always, thanks to GB Boxing. All those years of experience and tough situations helped a lot last night on the big stage. Also, everyone from Burton and Swaddencote, I butchered that came and supported, and a heart emoji. Tomorrow it's back to learning and working. Big phrase. And I segue into something else here, because you've got the French heavyweight Mourad Aliev. He has signed on to Probellum, and in the course of this press release announcing Aliev joining Probellum, they're actually using Frazer Clarke's name to basically talk up Aliev, who I think to a lot of boxing fans will be maybe a less known sort of commodity. He was the guy that was disqualified at the Olympics in his match with Frazer Clarke, and that was he was disqualified in that one. Aliev actually just fought this past weekend. This becomes relevant in a moment due to some hilarity within some of these comments, but talks about heavyweight Mourad Aliev will use the injustice he suffered in the Olympics against Frazer Clarke as fuel to succeed as a professional after becoming the latest Probellum co-promotional signing. Says the French fighter was booted out of the Tokyo Games for deliberate use of the head in his quarterfinal bout with Great Britain's captain. Aliev was outraged at the decision to disqualify him in the 2nd round, strongly arguing his innocence, and the 26-year-old hit the headlines after staging a sit-in protest to dispute the decision, which lasted almost an hour. I can't even remember that, actually. However, since having teamed up with Probellum and Arena Box, the 6'7" puncher wants to prove himself on the biggest stage and is already eyeing a rematch with Clarke. I felt a great injustice in the Olympics, and although the officials now accept they made a mistake, it was still an injustice. But I will use the pain of that experience to make sure I achieve great things in the professional ranks, which I know will happen with the backing of both my promoters, Probellum and Arena Box. Okay, so maybe he was just working with Universum and not with them. But that's interesting. Or perhaps it was just a short deal. I don't know all the particulars. But certainly his first two pro fights have been on Universum Box promotion cards. He continues, I would definitely love a rematch with Clarke, and I watched his professional debut on Saturday, which was a joke of a fight. He won a bronze medal after I was disqualified in the Olympics, but he knows I was winning our fight before it was called off. There's a bit more, and you've got Richard Schaefer quoted, the world saw the emotional images of Mourad Aliev after he suffered the disqualification at the Olympics, and our job is now to harness that pain and desire to help Mourad fulfill his vast potential in the sport's blue ribbon division. At 6'7", he's a giant heavyweight, and everyone at Probellum is thrilled to have him on board. The Frazer-Clarke rematch would be a huge fight down the line. Well, certainly what I've seen before is that he's been listed at less than 6'7", at sort of 6'5 and a half, 6'6", so maybe that's slightly inflated. I've never seen him listed at 6'7", but going back to what he said about that fight over the weekend that he called of Clarke's as a joke, bearing in mind he just had his second pro fight over this past weekend, and that ended in strange and bizarre circumstances against an overmatched opponent, and he kind of manhandled him to the ground in the second round, punched him while he was on the canvas, so was at risk of being disqualified himself. The referee lets the guy get up, he beats the count, and then it's waved off. It was really weird, but more on that in that video, the post-fight review, which covers, actually that video covers Frazer-Clarke, Mourad Aliev, and also the other main event on that card that Aliev was on. So check that out at your leisure if you have not seen it. Moving on, so the Polish heavyweight Damian Knyba, he will be back in the ring in March, facing the journeyman who's now based in South Africa, Dillian Whyte. So he's previously fought guys like Vladislav Serenko, stopped 3 or 4 years ago by him. And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video, Dave Allen. So posting to social media, and I thought this is interesting, sort of just putting the heavyweight division a little bit on notice. Hey, I'm still here. I've been doing some things, saying I've been getting very fit on the sly. I was always a hard man to beat purely on my stubborn, hard bastardness. Add that to super fitness, experience, and finding my why I'm doing this, and I'm going to have the last laugh. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.